Hey, everybody, you're listening to and possibly watching, if you are joining us on our live stream, the Comic Book Bears podcast. I'm Bill Zanowitz.
I'm Steve Morey.
And I'm Caleb Alexander McKenzie.
And we are your hairy, heavy homos that talk about comic books, but you don't have to be a hairy, heavy homo to listen in, or as I said, possibly stream in. And we're joining you again for some comic book talk. We hope from this episode to get back on our bi-weekly schedule. It's been a little hazy and weird and disjointed, but I think we're back on track, guys. I really do. How you guys been? Did you have a good Halloween? You have a spooky Halloween?
Spooky Halloween.
Spooky Halloween.
Yeah, I mean, we never get any trick or treaters, so we don't bother buying candy. I know you have
candy at 55. Yeah, I'll let you know that.
Which it is what it is, right? For us, we're set back. We're a scary house way back, and we have our lights off. So,
the creepy cabin. You're the creepy cabin in the woods with the bearded gaze.
I guess. I mean, we are set really far back from the road. So, we watched for the final spooky movie, like spooky Halloween movie, because I was doing the daily, like the 31 movies of Halloween.
Yeah.
We watched Little Evil on Netflix, and it was hilarious. A lot of just a play on the Omen movie series.
Yeah.
Devil, evil child, and stepfather kind of doesn't know what's going on. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. But yeah, that was our Halloween. I picked Jason up from the airport at 5:00, and because he just got back from Colorado, and we came home, had dinner, and watched a movie. Halloween.
Well, so Roger and I's Halloween was really on Saturday night. So we, our friend Kathy, who her birthday is the 29th, I believe. And so she always has a birthday party around that. It's a big costume party, big Halloween party. So, kill two birds with one stone. So we did that, dressed up, went and had fun, had some drinks with friends. And then, Halloween fell on a Tuesday night this year. So Tuesdays are traditionally the nights that I go out in the van and I take out, socks and blankets and clothes and stuff to folks who sleep outside. So I did not miss that. I went ahead and just jumped in the van and went and drove out, and I passed out treats, no tricks, to the folks here in Central Arkansas. So that was fun. I always enjoy that. So had a good time. But that was my Halloween night. Just I was a guy in a van that went around asking people if they wanted candy.
Candy or blankets or other things. Toiletries.
From 3:30 to 7, it was a non-ending cycle of me answering the doorbell.
Yeah.
With all these friggin' kids. I was a bit of a prick in one way, but I benefited some kids. If the kids were dressed in DC Comics characters, they got extra candy. So we had 2 Supermen and a Harley Quinn that made out like bandits.
Nice.
And the girl was Harley Quinn. There was her friend was Jasmine. And I just wondered what was going through Jasmine's head. And I'm pouring candy into her pumpkin.
And 1 peanut butter kiss for you, Jasmine, and 3 king-size crunch bars for you, Harley.
She's my favorite.
I have a question about that.
Yeah.
What superheroes have you guys dressed up as on Halloween before? Or if
Supergirl? I went as Supergirl one year.
Okay.
Oh, cool.
As a kid, I went as who the hell did I go as? I one year it was late in the game and I got the stupid Ben Cooper's Superman outfit with the Lone Ranger mask. That was one year. But there was another year where there was a group of us, and it wasn't we were all going as TV characters, and it's superhero adjacent. I went as Steve Austin, the $6 Million Man.
Oh, nice.
As a kid, and just like somewhere my mother found that, that red and white jumpsuit. That's in the credits. It looked a lot like it, so it was here's a costume.
Did you bring a tape recorder and just go every time you walked up to the door?
Yeah, and my neighbor Ariadne Alexudis went as Jamie Summers.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. We had a Wonder Woman. We had a Hulk. The Hulk was like 5 years old, but it was like the neighborhood kids.
Yeah.
But that's and then like as an adult, I went as Supergirl one year. I was hideous. I was a hideous Supergirl. Drag would not be my thing, man.
What about you, Steve?
So in the 80s, I was one of those kids that would always get, or most of the time would get the those weird sort of like plasticky smock kind of costumes where you'd have like the mask and then like put on like a plastic,
like a vinyl
onesie. Yeah, that I'm sure was highly flammable because and I'm not 100% sure because I don't really remember all the trick-or-treating back then, but I think I went as Superman one year. Can't remember 100%. I know I did go as a Garbage Pail Kid one year though. That was fun. I went with the one with the spiders all over him. I can't remember. But again, stupid smock ones. But the one year where I made my own costume, it was also the last year that I went out trick-or-treating. I went as Cyclops of the X-Men.
Nice.
I had ski goggles. I actually like cut out a thing like to make the yellow visor, and it was red plastic for the goggles, and then had a blue jacket on with big X on the back. Nobody knew who the fuck I was, so it was great. And what are you supposed to be?
So I have been in the last couple of years. Roger and I went as Batman and Robin one. No, I went as Robin. He went as Aquaman one year. We couldn't find a Batman costume for him. And then, honestly, I think that might be it. I want to do Wonder Woman. I really do. I want to do a Wonder Woman costume one year and just go full blown Glamazon. And then there was one when I was a kid. I don't think I did superheroes very much when I was a kid. Maybe Batman, like one of those like kind of like you're talking about the costume in a bag things. But I did a werewolf one year that I've retroactively decided was Werewolf by Night because it would work. So like it was really cool. Like we literally glued like fake hair all over me and stuff, and I had like it was the closest I've ever had to a beard as a child. So or that one time I dated what's her name. But anyway, but no, it was fun. It was good times. But I think I've also never done Superman, and I think I might try to pull off Superman next year, or Diana. Like I said, I may swing for that. See if I can't find a really good Wonder Woman outfit.
You could split the two and be Superwoman.
That's true.
Just be kind of like the villainous,
just wear a Diana wig. That way, it's not Supergirl.
There you go.
Or just go full blown and do Power Girl and just get a chest plate and just have it all out. But no, that's my superhero costume Halloween experiences.
Steve, awesome. Just because I had this on hand, I just sent you a picture. If you could put it up, I don't know how long it would take. That'd be too much.
Well, we'll see. We'll see how nice the system is.
So now I'm thinking of like some costumes. The funniest one when I was a kid was I went as the Empire State Building, and that was the Halloween like a year after King Kong came out, the 1976 King Kong, and I had like a TV antenna and like a monkey that was supposed to be King Kong. The only thing was I couldn't sit down in the outfit. I was on my feet the whole goddamn day. You couldn't sit down in it.
That'll learn you.
Yeah. My quickest Halloween costume is I got a sheet with the two holes of the ghost, put a tiara on, and I was Princess Diana.
So I'm gonna tell on my husband real quick. So at the Halloween party Saturday, number one, I didn't really wear a costume. I threw on a Tom of Finland shirt and threw on a leather jacket and like put some armbands on and just went as a leather daddy because I was tired. Roger, who is also tired, my husband, who is a RN, he's a nurse. He went as a nurse. He wore scrubs. Then that following Monday, my office, my law office, I work for a quasi governmental agency. They had an office-wide Halloween thing, a lunch, right? People were to wear costumes and stuff. So I just wore Roger scrubs. I took a stethoscope, and I was a nurse that day. And by the way, I have a bone to pick with professionalism, right? Why is it that I have to wear a suit and a tie, but my husband gets to wear basically professional sweatpants? Like
professional
those
pajamas.
Yeah, those things were the most comfortable things I've ever worn while I made money. Like, it's just ridiculous.
I guess maybe it's the nicest thing they can do.
I don't know
for
how
medical
long you'd retain your job, but you could.
That's true.
Could you get scrubs that where you basically paint a suit on?
I'm gonna do scrubs with like a tuxedo t-shirt.
Just because I had it offhand, here's another Halloween costume from years past. Steve, you can put that on. This is me and my friend Judy as the Eurythmics. Not. And then for the remainder of my Halloween night, I was in the mode that Steve was in, and kids had stopped coming around 7:30 or so. And I've always wanted to explore the Hammer horror films. I've seen some like The Curse of Frankenstein and whatever the one with the Dracula and the hippies is, the Dracula 73 or something. I've seen some of them, but I haven't seen a lot of them. So I decided I'm going to start watching them, but I'll watch them in order. And I put on what technically, and it's not even much of a horror film. It's like sci-fi horror. The film of the Quatermass experiment.
I love that movie.
56, yeah. So
it was that movie. I don't know why.
First time I've seen it. And then there was I was reading with when it played in the States, it had a different name. It had The Creeping Unknown, but it was a double feature with this film called The Black Sleep, which had a great cast. It was Basil Rathbone and Bela Lugosi and Lon Chaney Jr. Q Katrina Pearson. Sucks. And John Carradine had a really good cast in mid-1950s film. And I was surprised I believe it's a film that's in the public domain. The print that's on Amazon Prime is beautiful. It almost feels like a 4K restoration. It was a beautiful print. So
interesting.
I had a double horror feature on Halloween for the rest of my night.
You could consider it a science fiction double feature.
Yeah, the second film is horror. I would quantify Quatermass Experiment as sci-fi horror.
Well, because it's creatures are
when they go to the zoo. I mean, that was creepy as hell, and it has a lot more in common with Alien than Star Wars. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I will make you a man. Bum, 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 bum.
Lovely. Well, awesome. I mean, I think next year I'm going to do the same thing with the 31 Days of Halloween. I mean, my husband basically almost killed me with it because, that's kind of like the evenings are kind of like our, hanging out time. And he's not a big horror movie fan. So like a lot of times I'm like, okay, you have to leave the room because I'm watching a bloody movie. Or we had to find something that we both would enjoy. So next year it's probably not going to work out too well because I've decided I'm going to start doing themes. So I might do all of Friday 13th, all of the Nightmares, the remakes, and maybe all of Halloween. Just get the massive franchises every day. And none of those Jason will want to watch.
Oh damn! Did that thing hit the 90s version of the horror film, the long ass?
So the pre-orders did go out. I'm not sure if the actual film is available. I know the pre-orders were going out.
We should probably give the name of the film here.
In Search of, but it's the 90s. So like the original In Search of Darkness. In Search of Darkness was parts 1, 2, and 3 were all about the horror movies in the 80s.
Yeah.
Whereas now it's In Search of, I guess it's still In Search of Darkness, but it's In Search of Darkness, the 90s, and it's the first part. So it's 90 to 94. So I'm really excited about that because people, they were talking about it as like the lost decade of horror. But I mean, during the 90s, there was a lot of interesting horror.
I don't think that's necessarily inaccurate.
I mean,
because when you think of classic horror films from the 90s, it's a short list. You know,
I would say
maybe
yes for
Scream is
big
up
names.
there. Yeah.
Yes for big names, but the 90s was also, that's when I was hitting up all the Full Moon Entertainment stuff, like all the Puppet Masters and the subspecies that were, after the.
Well, it was also the
80s.
decade of the direct to video.
Yeah,
and
a lot of those.
Was Hellraiser 90s or was that 80s?
Hellraiser started in the 80s, and then 3, I think, was the first one, was in the 90s.
Okay. What about Species and that kind of stuff? Was that 90s or before?
What was?
Which one?
Species.
Species was also 90s. Yeah, that was like 96 or something, 95, 96. So yeah, I mean,
I'm trying to think of movies that I remember watching or like that were in that era because it was a weird era, right? Because people were kind of slowly starting to get away from practical effects, but digital wasn't where it needed to be. So you just get a lot of weird schlock, like nonsense and like weird digital stuff that just doesn't look great. In hindsight, it just didn't age well.
Well, so. I think you also had some experimentation too, because I mean, people can shit on Alien 3 all they want. I actually love the fact that it is a David Fincher film, and it makes it really unique, And then, of course, Alien 4 Resurrection. I mean, that was. Yeah. I mean, Genet, to do a horror sci-fi.
I'm going to make an admission. I fell asleep at Alien 3.
Oh, okay.
Dead asleep. So
it's, you know what? It's not for everybody.
I'm a sucker for those movies.
The film I thought was the scariest film of the 90s is a science fiction film, or wherever it lands. Fire in the Sky. That is a scary. When you get to the point where something happens, not to spoil it for people, it's like 20 minutes of like unmitigated horror, as far as I'm concerned, of that being the unknown.
I feel like if a movie or a book or any other pop culture reference was made in a year that started with the numbers 1 and 9, you get to spoil it. It's okay. It's okay to spoil that at this point.
Okay, Black Chip the Dude.
Years.
All right. Yeah, I mean, I'm just saying. Well, if you saw the movie poster, you'll get it. It's when they get up to the alien ship, and then for like 20 minutes, I was just terrified.
Yeah,
of that whole sequence. Yeah.
And
then I got out. I saw that movie in a theater that was just off of Times Square in New York City, and I get outside, and it's like 10, like 10-ish. 10 p.m.-ish, and there's nobody on the street, and that freaked me out too.
Yeah.
Nobody. Oh my God, that was the weirdest night.
Let's keep the train rolling. I like this. What? So Bill, you said that was the scariest movies of the 90s. What is the scariest movie that you have seen? Like, what would you say is your top, like, hairs on the back of the neck standing up? What is, and same for you, Steve, like, what is your favorite what is the most scary movie?
It's not so much for the scares in the film, but for the general tone of it. There's a movie from the early 70s called Let's Scare Jessica to Death, and that it has that like 70s like creepy kind of washed out filter that even like the commercial comedies were using for like Veritas. There's just an overwhelming creepiness to that. The scariest film, Audition, I think, is what probably I had to go through. It's a Japanese horror film, and I had to go through 2 attempts to get through it. I was so like freaked out by it. I would say Audition is the one that's genuinely some creepy shit.
Interesting.
Yeah. And then another scene, like, it's a terrible film as far as I'm concerned, because it's like such shit acting, and you have to say that this isn't realistic, but no people would ever act the way that they do. But Cloverfield, when they go on the subway and there's the equivalents of fleas that are like, I don't have to see that again. That was really
that's the way I'm feeling about most found footage movies. I don't need to see that again.
There's one real good one. If you ever want to give one a shot, which is better than most, Grave Encounters.
I've heard of that. Yeah,
it's actually it's tongue in cheek where it needs to be.
Yeah,
and then it takes a turn and it has the perfect vibe. The sequel sucks, but the first Grave Encounters I think is definitely worth it. I actually like found footage films.
Yeah.
Caleb, give VHS 85, which is the latest one that they came out with, the VHS series where it's all sort of like anthologies on different videotapes.
Okay.
VHS 85.
That's the one that premiered on Shudder.
Yeah, it just came out last month. It's really well done.
Okay.
They do a really fun job kind of playing with the whole idea of, 1980s grainy, video on it. But I thought it was really good. Not super scary, but I think really creative and really well done. There's a connected story in 2 parts that absolutely hands down equal parts funny, inventive, and cool. Anyway, so for my scariest movie, the original Dawn of the Dead.
Okay. Little Max Marrero.
And all it takes is the first 5 minutes. That's it. If you went into this movie cold, didn't know what you're watching, the first 5 minutes would leave you just absolutely shaking. And they don't even show one zombie in the first 5 minutes.
It's just all suspense based. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So that alone is just scary, like true fear to me. Suspiria is the other one, the original Suspiria, for the music and the tones.
I love Suspiria so much. Murder never looks so beautiful.
I mean, talk about like, unrealistic actions and, actors with bizarre motivations. That's perfect. But yeah, I mean, that one for tone, perfect, like full fear all throughout. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of like
Suspiria is the kind of movie, it's just as creepy when nothing scary is happening.
Yeah.
Right.
The interstitials, like you said, Steve, like these are some really warped people.
Yeah.
Well,
and the Goblin soundtrack.
Yeah.
I was going to say in Suspiria, the background noise, that kind of aphractic music that they use, the sound that they use, that makes those even dead moments just terrifying. Yeah.
Argento. And when I first saw it, I actually first saw it in a movie theater. Cinema du Parc up in Montreal actually had a series of like old movies that they would show all throughout the month. Like it wasn't like a special thing usually, but they did. They found an original print of Suspiria, and so it was the first time I actually saw it. And when you have like modern speakers playing that music, your eardrums explode, but it all works. So that clanging, especially like every time that something was going to happen, or like the chamber of barbed wire when she's like trying to claw, that one girl is trying to claw herself out of the chamber of barbed wire, you hear that like that at 5,000 decibels will cause your nose and ears and eyes to bleed, but it gets the job done.
Okay, so you heard from us, Caleb. What about you? Yeah.
So I got a top 3, right? So the scariest movie I've ever seen, hands down, is the original Max Schreck Nosferatu, the silent film. Like that is to me one of the it's one of the original horror movies, but just I rewatch it every year, right? It is genuinely terrifying. Like it just really is. Everything about it just is the fact that it was made when it was made. And that is the outcome. Like it gives, like, I have nightmares about it. I don't know why I subject myself to it, but it's legit disturbing. Number 2 is probably it's a Romero movie. It's The Crazies. To a large extent. And then The Birds. That movie freaks me the hell out. I think it's his best. I love it's the best in the worst way, right? It just is genuinely unsettling. So yeah, that's mine. But yeah, no, dude, the Max Schreck Nosferatu movie, if you've never seen that, it's worth spending whatever Amazon Prime is asking for just to watch it.
It's public domain, so
yeah. So I mean, it's not hard to find.
We have Will Lindis joining us right as we're talking about movies. Will Lindis, hey Bears, says Will. So yeah, thank you for joining us tonight.
Now, on that note, though, Caleb, you mentioned that you watch Nosferatu every year.
Mm-hmm.
I also have 2 films that I watch around Halloween every year. So Steve, I was wondering before I mentioned mine, if you had some that
I watch every year.
Yeah.
No, I don't have any that I have to like. I don't have any ritual movies that I have.
Yeah, I have 2. And I spoke about it on the last show, Halloween, 78. The other one is The Wicker Man.
Oh yeah,
and I always have to put that in at some point, almost from the point I'm going to see something new that I didn't see the time before, because it is, a visually loaded film, and it maintains its surreal quality. I can watch it 50 times and still feel like I'm looking at a parallel universe. So.
Interesting. Yeah.
So I just add on to that. So I do watch the original Nosferatu every year. I'm not a huge, just like actual, like as far as just a fan of things, I'm not a huge horror fan. So I prefer horror. I can't. I'm Southern and I can't say the word horror, so I apologize for that. It just sounds like I'm saying horror the entire time.
All these horror movies.
Yeah, I prefer to read my horror than watch it, but. We also, in a very cliche fashion, we watch Rocky Horror, and we usually watch Hocus Pocus every year. Just funny, comical stuff like that. I also still watch Babes in Toyland at Christmas. Like I like that era of film, kind of just quiche, kitsch film.
A quiche film. That sounds good.
Quiche film. Film about quiches.
Yeah, it's my quiche.
Will ask us again, are y'all reading any horror comics in the spirit of the season? I've been reading them all year. Will.
I didn't.
I've just been John, our good friend John Runyon over at Comic Book Look. He kind of inspired me over the past couple of years to really give horror comics a chance, and like these guys as well. I mean, we've been I've been reading a lot more over the past couple of years than I think I ever have before, because I never really gave it a thought. Like the classic EC stuff is always fun, but like modern horror, there's some great books out there.
Yeah, there really is.
Really good.
And I'm a huge fan of vampire stories, right? So this is a great time because we're not getting stupid vampire stories anymore. Like Philadelphia has been amazing. We're getting that whole horror verse out of that. So it's good stuff.
All right. All right. Well, that's another half an hour diversion.
Will did mention this. World Tree is solid. And Will, do you mean was 0 RLD R33? James Tinian is now a must-read writer for me. Yeah, JT4 has been really doing a great job. World Tree, I love. I'm kind of like on the edge about what they're going to do for issue number 6, because the way they ended number 5, all right. But yeah, I mean, JT4 has done some really good stuff. He did Memetic, didn't he? Memetic and Cognetic.
I think that was him. Yeah.
Yeah, those were. I mean, those were harsh. Memetic, especially.
Something is killing the children.
Something is killing the children is a good one. Black Eyed Kids was great.
What was the one where everybody's on an island?
Oh God,
that was wonderful. I can't believe I
only got the first issue. It was like one of his last DC titles.
Yeah, that is
the last something.
Last House on the Lake.
Yeah.
House on the Lake.
The House on the Lake. Yeah,
last House on the Lake. Yeah.
I would normally know these things, but I can't use my phone right now because my phone is
nice house on the lake.
Nice house on the lake. That's exactly
the last nice house on the lake.
The last best market. Nice house.
Nice house in the lake.
It's a buyer's market. It's the last one.
Of course, Halloween time they always come out with anthologies and one shots, and Headless Horseman was Dark Horses this year. Just really fun, kind of playing off of the whole. Yeah. Like Crypt Keeper collection of anthology, stories that don't really have a connection. It's but fun, just fun stuff. But yeah.
All right. Well, there was some bits of news that we probably should cover before we get into the comic book talk. So, if you're listening to the audio version, It's time for the news. Okay. All right, Steve, take us.
I'm not taking part in this. I have nothing to do with
taking part at all. That's just silly.
Well, you're like so a perfect anchorman drinking while,
Caleb's over here in the Playboy, apartment, with the martini. Sammy Davis Jr. is going to be stopping by later, and then here I am with my plastic cup, making news noises. Anyway, so one of the big things, and this actually is brand new, as in today, Thursday, the 2nd of November. DC announced that they're going to be putting out new editions of a lot of their most popular trades and graphic novels, primarily the trades, collected editions, and they're calling them the DC Compact comic collections. So these are actually going to be a smaller format, single, I think it's an 8.5 by 5 and 5.5.
Like manga size?
Yeah, basically. Yeah, manga size. And specifically to kind of capture that market of people who like to have something that's easy to carry around, that's not a huge thing. Because, graphic novels and trades are all shapes and sizes. Sometimes I know some of the publishers try to make a uniform decision about what they're putting out, but a lot of times not always. And especially with these editions, these particular books they've decided to put out this way, they've been published in all sorts of sizes and formats over the past, 20 some years, 30 some years in case of a few of them. But they're putting out a lot of their really popular ones, their bestsellers, but also some that they are really pushing and promoting. And this doesn't just go with the standard DC titles, but also Young Animal is involved in that. You've also got some Black Label stuff, which is pretty cool. So, of course, the titles to start off: Watchmen, always a bestseller, is always on somebody's top selling list.
It's the best.
Watchmen's going to be.
So.
Oh, what'd you say?
Cut out, Caleb.
Do what?
You cut out.
Oh, I said, yeah, it's the best comic ever made. So it's, that.
Sure. Far Sector, which is probably one of the newer ones that's on this list. So J.K.
Jemisin, yeah.
Jemisin. And All-Star Superman, of course, because we are going to be getting a version of that, or a possible version of that, in the new DC cinematic universe. Trail of the Catwoman. Batman Hush, of course, is, again, one of those top sellers, top-selling stories.
The Trial of
Batman.
Was that the Brubaker...
Hush?
No,
Trail of Cap. I'm not entirely sure of that.
Darwin Cook.
Okay.
Darwin Cook. That's right. Court of Owls. Wonder Woman Earth 1 is going to be on there. American Vampire. Scott Snyder's American Vampire, the first volume, is going to be on there. Mm-hmm. Azzarello and Bermejo's Joker, that just came out, I think, last year. As well as the Harley Quinn Gotham City.
That came out much. I think you're thinking of something else. That came out years ago.
Wasn't there a Bermejo one that?
Yeah, the one the Bermejo Batman.
That was Batman.
Oh, that's what I'm thinking of. Okay, yeah. No, yeah. So this Joker, this is the. Okay.
Yeah, which is it's fantastic. Shout out to Craig who made me read that, and it's wonderful.
Well, of course, now you can get it in a new edition that's going to be smaller. And the great thing about this, the price point is the same for all of them, $9.99.
Yeah.
So, it's to encourage new readers, to encourage readers like me or you who haven't read some of these, maybe, to kind of give them a shot. And again, they're all going to be the same standard format. In other words, pissing everybody off who's had like every other format version.
Well, that's that's the dumbest argument in the world, because people have triple and quadruple dipped for 35 years.
We have like 2 or 3 copies of Watchmen.
So just shut the fuck up. One place I think those are going to do really well: airports.
Yeah.
Hopefully, they make sure to sell them at airports.
Really well in airports. Yeah.
Yeah. If you're watching this, I was making a face, right? Like, these books were not drawn with that size format in mind. I mean, obviously they're drawn on larger Bristol board, and then they know they're going to be reduced. But like manga works because those artists know that the what they're drawing is going to be reduced to that size. It works for that size, right? You can do books like that are comic strips, but like imagine Walt Simonson Thor reduced to that size. Like you're losing so much.
Yeah, but
right?
at the same token, you know, have you ever looked at some of the European sizes?
Yeah,
So and that's been going on since the 60s, you know, with reduced size. So I don't think, and I also think this is going to be a fairly nuanced reader, and I don't think they're going to be under any impression that this was the way it was originally intended, just that it's in a convenient form.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Now,
well, I mean,
book, and I think out of a lot of their publishing initiatives that haven't generated a puddle jump, I think something like this would be like, oh, there's only one Batman title in this series, in this compact series, but I go over to the graphic novel section and it's, you know, 2/3 of the first first shelf. You know, I think that's I think it's a good selling mechanism. I do. I think it is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So,
and the price point, and the price point's beautiful.
Oh, the price point's beautiful. Like that part's like you're getting this for almost like what 2 times the price of a standard like 32-page floppy comic
at this point. Yeah. $3.99 to $4.99 is pretty standard at this point.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I think it'll be good. Hopefully it does sell well, and hopefully it gets people, you know, who don't normally read comics or graphic novels to at least give them a shot. Hopefully find something like. Yeah. But also sticking with DC, there was one other bit of news over the past couple of weeks, and that is the departure of Pam Lifford, which you know, she came in just a couple of years ago. Was it 5 years ago? Maybe even less than that.
I feel like it was pre-pandemic.
Yeah, it was about that time. Yeah. And she basically, you know, she became the Warner Brothers Consumer Product and Franchise Group Division head. So she was running that part of DC, or part of WB, in which DC kind of falls under that. She made some interesting decisions, and also some of the, you know, I would say conflicts within the DC group kind of happened under her watch too. So, you know, obviously, DiDio was canned under that. There was the famous Batman, speaking of the Bermejo Batman, Batwang situation that happened that was kind of, I guess, marred the launch of the Black Label imprint. But then also DC lost their comic booth at SDCC, which was a really big thing. It was combined, I think, at that point with the Warner Brothers booth, so they didn't have their own singular presence at SDCC like they had for decades. So, so.
And Bill in particular, you've gone to more of the bigger con. I mean, I know not San Diego, but
I've been to San Diego.
Yeah, not. Yeah. Oh no, I mean regular, right?
Yeah,
But what I was going to say is not seeing or not hearing about DC or, you know, the big two, right? Having a presence at things like San Diego or at New York Comic Con, which is mainly what I'm referencing. Like that just feels weird to me still. And I know things, but
I think with New York Comic Con, it's a little different because of the sheer cost of having. I mean, San Diego's there too now, but I do think it's a bit surprising since DC moved out to the West Coast, which I never thought was the right move, just because the publishing world is in New York. And I think that goes to one of the key elements of finding somebody to fill this position with Warner's is they have to get somebody with some publishing experience. It doesn't have to be comic books because that's a small world, but you know, there certainly is alignment with a lot of other areas that fall under the consumer division with the way that publishing operates. And you also think of one person that was jettisoned from DC, Daniel Cherry, who came out of esports, and the word was he didn't do a damn thing and took credit for stuff. The word with Pam Lifford, she fought with people and took credit for the stuff she fought about. There's also this and I have to say admitted complication, and you're talking about two people who are people of color, and that's that for an industry that's known for principally white men, middle-aged white men. It was good to see that there were hiring practices that where they were consciously going for something else. But I just think in these two individuals, it just didn't work out. But I do think I know there's somebody that's there in the interim who's been with Warner's for some time. It's got a last name I'm not even going to try to pronounce.
Oberschelp. Robert
Okay.
Oberschelp.
Good on you there, son. But yes, I do think anybody that's in that position has to have some knowledge of the publishing world, because if only as R&D for Warner Brothers, DC is incredibly valuable. The thing is, for most of DC's existence from Jeanette Kahn on, they've made profits. Marvel couldn't always say that. DC almost always operated in the blue.
And they know it sells. There's a reason why, even in the past 15 years, there's been, 15 Batman books published at a time. They're going to make money. So,
yeah. But I think more with DC, I think that they led the way in in trades, in the 90s.
No,
you could rely on them far more than Marvel. And I mean, Image's trades were not existent in the 90s. Mm-hmm. They really missed a big opportunity there, I think.
Well, I mean, they had enough trouble getting their single issues out.
Yeah.
Let alone a collected trade.
But I'm sure that given the restructuring of the film division and everything that's coming under James Gunn, it would be nice if there's I wouldn't want to say direct cohesion with the publishing unit, but at least in terms of feel, that there's a lot more alignment, which I do think there is to Marvel to some extent.
But I think
continuities aren't the same, but there are certain Marvel books that feel like you're not gonna have people scratching their heads if they came from the MCU into it.
Yeah, but to that point, and I take that point, Bill. I think it's an important one. I think that when Marvel does it, it's primarily retrospective. It's retroactive, right? So they will it's not this big metaverse where they've done a really good job of look, we're going to have something in a film and we're going to have something on TV and it's all going to play together. Streaming ties into this, which ties into that, right? And they can do that with comics. They could loop that into it. But with Marvel, they're like, okay, this version of Loki did a really good job. Let's put this version of Loki in the comics, right? Like this version of Captain America is popular, so let's retroactively make it the Chris's. Let's make it those characters, and they do it retroactively. Versus what I would love for them to do, and I don't know how intricate. I'm obviously not in that world. I don't know how it would work, but it would be very meta to have the monthly comics fill in a story between film and whatever streaming episodic television thing.
Yeah, my only worry with that is that would be its only purpose after a point, and that's not a good road to go down.
No, it's not, but it's also
I could see that happening.
I could too, but I also loathe the idea that these are just IP factories, right? I don't like that at all.
I mean, we're going to be talking about the MCU very, very shortly, but I think if you take a look at what Disney is doing with the Star Wars media, everything ties in together, and they made that choice obviously to jettison anything that wasn't what they considered the new canon, but they are starting to slowly bring back in Legends. But that's affecting the books that are out. That's affecting the comics. That's affecting the shows, eventual movies whenever those start coming back. But like all of that is connected and all being made part of canon. So something you read in the comics, you can read more of it in the prose books. You can see echoes of that, or even direct, maybe characters from those in the shows that are coming up. So I think with Star Wars, they're probably, I would say they do the interconnected work between the different media pretty well now.
And Star Wars has always been good at that. I would actually argue that Star Trek has been even better at that.
Oh yeah,
Star Trek is wonderful at looping in literature, the literary element into its broader filmography. It's wonderful that way.
Yeah. But going back to the MCU, one of the things that was a considerable failure was the idea of the Inhumans being pushed because they didn't have access or didn't have the rights in the film, in their film division to use the X-Men. So it's like, well, we got to find something else that just generates powered characters. So let's push this Inhuman thing. So they pushed it in. They pushed it on TV with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. They tried to push it with the Inhumans themselves, and then of course they then put that back in the comics. So in the comics, you had a ton of characters that were being created as Inhumans. You had some retconning about changing mutants into Inhumans just so that they could justify using them in that way. And that didn't work at all. That was a failure. You have some great characters out of that, I'm sure. Miss Marvel, 100%.
Now
we're the biggest names out of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, now it's the reverse. Now she's a mutant.
Yeah.
Which was something that happened in the show and then carried back over into the comics. Now saying like, oh, well, we made her a mutant in the show, so this is a kind of a way to get mutants into the film universe, into the MCU. Let's see if we can't connect that back to the comics and make her a mutant there too. Very different way, obviously, completely different way, different way of utilizing that. But they're trying a lot of things, so we'll see. But there was a recent retreat, wasn't there, Bill? That they
and it was reported. It's a bit of a misleading article in Variety because the title is Crisis at Marvel. But
Crisis happens at DC, guys.
Yeah, Crisis is only for DC.
But apparently for years, Kevin Feige has been leading an annual retreat. This year was at Palm Springs. I could stand that. In the past few years, there was, basically a cockiness about these annual retreats, and for the first time the reporting was that this was pretty angst ridden. Some of it stems from films underperforming, that the Marvels had a tremendous amount of reshoots, the ongoing issues with the legal troubles with Jonathan Majors, who as Kang was poised to have a major role. And one thing that I did find interesting about the reporting was that Marvel seems to know things are not firing on all cylinders. One thing that came out is that there were episodes of She-Hulk that cost as much as $25 million, and the VFX, it's in there, and that there's VFX, which again, had been an ongoing problem. Was in our, before our eyes in Quantumania. The VFX studio that was in-house decided to unionize, and that's had an effect on other VFX houses across Hollywood. And it was interesting because, when you are on the top of the heap, because I think it's basically impossible to conceive of a film landscape where Marvel films are not part of it over the next decade.
Right.
But that the reporting was so frank, and it seemed very, people have been very tight-lipped on the MCU business front, and it seems failure sometimes can generate that. I don't think there's been a big Marvel failure yet. There have been underperforming films, but there haven't been films that have really lost money apart from Black Widow, and that was in a very different situation with the pandemic at the start,
and was a pretty okay movie.
Yeah, and
and
one that I don't think there's even any kind of baseline comparison to set it against, but yeah, it seems that they're they're recognizing that something's rotten in Denmark, the MCU of Denmark, and
it's like 614.
Yeah.
They're gonna
but I think you can use me as an example where something is amiss. I haven't watched one episode of Loki season 2 yet. And normally I would be right on top of that stuff.
I haven't either.
It's
wow. Are we a hat trick?
Yeah, no, I've seen it all. We're up to it. It is. I actually really like this. Right.
Yeah.
I think it is cerebral. I think I hate time travel, so I am I'm kind of wired not to like this, but I think it's really well done. The acting is top notch. I like what they're doing. The story. I know Jonathan Majors has trouble, right? And there's some things in the air about whether what kind of person he is and some of the things he's done. He's fantastic in this. I mean, you can't deny what he puts on the screen. I mean, if you can separate the art from the artist in this sense, it's solid. Like the show is really good, really good. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. And I haven't enjoyed everything that they've done. I'm not somebody who's just going to, it's got a Marvel stamp, I think it's great, right? Like that's not true of me. Loki and WandaVision, I think are phenomenal. Like they blend a really good mesh up of art with episodic television, and they're doing a great job.
I'll eventually watch it, and this is the first time that a Marvel show has come out that I haven't been glued to it every single day. I think I had a very unfortunate reaction to Secret Invasion and just I needed to take a break.
Yeah,
Secret Invasion. It wasn't bad. It's not my favorite thing that's been done. Right, like there were moments in that were really good, but overall, I'm not crazy about what they're doing with that storyline.
Yeah. So.
Yeah.
Well, to end on like a positive note, though, we had something else it's not comic book related, but you know what? There's some.
It's right behind me. Music it's on me, so we may as well talk about it.
And I've got a graphic for it. So
all right, we'll put it up there. Okay, well this is the graphic for the promotion of it, which has gotten a lot more acceptance than the actual cover of the single. Which is very bare bones. It's just basically now and then, like in this direction, blue against white. People complain about everything, but that's what it is. But this is, as it's being presented, the last Beatles song, Now and Then, came out this morning. There was a promotional film regarding the making of it that came out on November 1st. And the backstory to this is that when the Beatles, the surviving Beatles of Paul, George, and Ringo got together for the mid-90s anthology project, they, added to existing John Lennon demos, and out of that came Free as a Bird and Real Love. And they started work on this song Now and Then and didn't complete it. And after Peter Jackson's Get Back used significant new technology to enhance the tapes that were recorded during the making of the Let It Be film and subsequently the Get Back film, Paul just asked Peter to apply this to John's voice, because one of the biggest problems when they were recording it was the piano was drowning out John's voice on the demo. And we have this technology where they can siphon that off and redirect, and we now have a recording. I don't think it's a spectacular song. I think it sounds much more like a John Lennon solo song than it does a Beatles song. but at the same token, it's them. And just what an amazing story that 53 years later, after their breakup and the death of two members, that something like this can even exist. And you'll see here my shirt. This was going to be Wolf of the Week. Geek Get or something, but past guest in the show, Kevin Sonicson, designed this shirt. Nice Beatles graphic. And thank you very much, Kevin, for sending this over to me. And you'll see back here, there's Beatles shit everywhere. So just very happy about that. And I just have to thank Kevin. He sent me a couple of shirts. And I'm going to ask this more to Caleb than Steve. If there was a mashup between the Golden Girls and the Dead Kennedys, what would be the name of the lead singer?
Oh, damn it, Dorothy.
Well, it would be Jello B. Arthur.
Jello B. Arthur. Yep. I was close.
That's great.
I was close.
You were real close. I think you would have gotten there eventually.
Yeah,
I would have thought. I actually would have thought like Jello Spiornak or Bjornak, whatever her last name was.
Yeah, but thank you very much, Kevin. And again, Kevin was a past guest. He was on with Cena because Kevin directed the Self Obsessed series. So, and is that it for news, there, Steve?
That's it for news. We had those 4 points, and which is a lot more news than what we've had recently. It's been kind of dry. Especially after New York Comic Con. I mean, it's usually not a lot afterwards.
Yeah. But I guess we have no excuse not to go over to the virtual spinner rack and start talking about comic books. Now, Steve, you have a Marvel book for the first time in a long time. So why don't we start? And Caleb's got a Marvel book, so you guys start with Marvel, and then I'll come in with a DC.
Okay.
So I've got a Marvel book, and it is not an X-Men book, although it does share a lot of shared universe DNA here. And in fact, this book probably more than it has in the past. And so what I am talking about is Alpha Flight. I was a huge fan of Alpha Flight back when I was first reading comics. This was the book, the original volume 1 was what I collected in back issues. Every time I had some extra bucks, I would go and pick through the bins and find some old issues of Alpha Flight. And I actually do still have a pretty good run of it up until the hundreds.
So you went well past Burn. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So I unfortunately that did not include the coming out issue for North Star, so I don't have that. I have the book. I have the book before it and the book after it, but I didn't have that issue. It wasn't because, yeah. But yeah, I was a huge fan of Alpha Flight. Loved Alpha Flight. Had my early proto gay crush on Puck, just because he was like this, literal fire plug hairball. But yeah, love the characters and everything. So Alpha Flight has had several different volumes since then. They've been all over the place. Department H has space stations all over there. They've been sort of world police. They've been villains essentially. Sometimes, it's just it's very interesting, their history over the past 30 years since I've been a regular reader. But they brought Alpha Flight back as part of the fall of X. So after what happened in the last Hellfire Gala with Orcus and the banishment, essentially, of most of the mutants from Earth, this is where Alpha Flight starts. So in Alpha Flight, they've brought back the non-mutant members of Alpha Flight as part of the Canadian task force to round up any mutants in Canada, to keep mutants out of Canada, so that it can be for humans only. Really, we're hunting them down. We're getting rid of them. And Alpha Flight, apparently, in the first issue, there is going along with it. In fact, there is even a character, a very old blast from the past, Box, or at least the son of Box, who has come back and has designed a form of, a Sentinel slash Box mashup automated soldier that he controls with, with the same cybernetic implants and helmet that his father originally did with the suit. We're treated to a couple different encounters with a few mutants. A new one named Argent that is in, I believe he ends up in Saskatchewan, getting attacked. And Alpha Flight is of course trying to bring him in to, I don't know, deport him somehow or put him in prison. And who should appear but North Star, Aurora, Dakin, who's now going by Fang, and Nemesis, who people have not seen in many, many years. Nemesis, the famously masked, even though it kind of sort of looks like a Spider-Man mask, figure with sword who could teleport, does magic, does all sorts of stuff, appears as well and fights against Alpha Flight and takes Argent away. And Alpha Flight, of course, they're defeated. They're humiliated in front of the rest of Department H. And yet, at the end, we find out, after visiting Krakoa North, somewhere up in the Yukon territories, Alpha Flight appears with the rest of the mutants and with the other members, with Aurora, North Star, Nemesis, etc., because they've been working together secretly. So Alpha Flight is putting on this performance of being this big mutant hunting Canadian protectorate, protection group, but there's also secretly trying to find mutants in Canada to get them together, to get them all off world. And they're not going to Mars because Mars is in the middle of a civil war. They're going to be going to Chandrilar with the blessing of the Shi'ar Empire. So that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to save any mutants that they can to get them off world, and trying to hide this from Department H. So to save as many as they can before they all kind of have to blow their cover and get out. It's really interesting what happens so far. There's been 3 issues that have been released. First 2 are pretty much just fights, and trying to kind of, engage the reader with the plan that's coming up. But the 3rd issue, which just came out, or a couple of weeks ago, is actually a pretty big reveal. We get to see who Nemesis is. Now, whether this has always been Nemesis or whether this is just a relatively recent, in canon, development for who Nemesis is, it is a perfect comic book reveal. You have it on the cover, Nemesis revealed, and it doesn't happen until the absolute last page, revealing who Nemesis is. The mask comes off, it was a surprise for me. It was a surprise for me, even having not read all that much of Alpha Flight over the past 30 years. Pretty cool. Really good reveal. So Ed Brisson is the writer on this one. Scott Godleski is the artist. Matt Milla does colors. And we've also got Travis Lanham as the letterer. Just doing an excellent job on this book. This is one of those classic Marvel comic books. And I like seeing this again. And this team is a very big nostalgia team for me. So I'm excited to continue reading this. It is very, very much tied into the whole X-Men thing, though. So if you're not really following what's going on in the Fall of X, it gives you enough backstory and, context. And there's plenty of, matter, very much like with all the other X-Men books for the past several years since Hickman. There's a lot of these, these side stories, these prose and articles or letters or whatever. So you kind of understand what's going on. But yeah, if you love Alpha Flight, you've got a lot of characters in here. There's going to be a lot of nostalgia because characters are coming back. Characters are being referenced that you may not have seen for 20, 30 years. So it's pretty cool. I'm enjoying it. I can't wait until the next couple issues. Now, I think I'm not 100% sure. I think this is a miniseries rather than an ongoing.
One thing that's been interesting has been the way that comic books have been solicited without and you see this, DC does this a little bit more, but Marvel's also been guilty where they're not solicited as, one of 5, but it's clearly, they're
It
at
ends
least
up being
testing
just
the waters, that if it's a smash hit, it will go.
Yep.
I mean, the most recent one where that happened was Poison Ivy. The sales for Poison Ivy were, it was originally intended as an 8-issue series, but not solicited as a miniseries. Then they extended it to 12, and now it's an ongoing. So I think that's part of the new paradigm, that there are certain miniseries that are not solicited as such. I imagine it would be. Kudos on Marvel to actually have a Canadian writer writing Alpha Flight.
Yeah,
that's great.
I mean, I have a feeling that they've kind of tried to do that, or at least have somebody from Canada involved.
Well, they did have a
somewhere.
one shot called True North, Alpha Flight True North, where it was all Canadian creators, but those were like small little 8-page stories. I don't think,
I mean, Byrne, obviously.
Well, Byrne is like, I think he's milked his Canadianism for all it's worth in the way that Randy Newman milks the 4 months that he lived in New Orleans, with his piano playing style. So I have a lot of questions, but it's not my place to ask you. I think I should just read this because the last time I read Alpha Flight regularly was when Byrne was on it. I did pick up the Omega Flight miniseries, which was 2007 already. I mean, that's how long ago that was already. This is one that I might investigate because I've always liked the characters. I've always liked the concept, the situation as you explain it, with Krakoa North and the political machinations that are happening. That sounds really interesting. So I might investigate this, Dave.
Did either of you read Game of Flight?
No.
I know of it.
So it's a tie-in to Immortal Hulk, which, by the way, is required reading. It should be. It's phenomenal. If you love me, I need you to read it so we can talk about it on a fairly regular basis
someday.
But there were moments in Game of Flight that I mean, it's Alpha Flight, right? It ties into the more gamma parts of the Hulk and its relationship, but it played off of the really great connection to the Alpha Flight Hulk universe that we never really thought of. So go check that out if you haven't. I mean, there's some really cool stuff there, and I wonder if there's anything referenced in, because I know you said that they talk about a lot of figures and stuff, and I wondered if there was anything referenced in here about Gamma Flight.
I think this one, this Alpha Flight group is very, very close to the classic. We're talking early days, 80s Alpha Flight, 80s to 90s Alpha Flight group.
Well,
there isn't, what was her name? Because she is dead. Although maybe she'll come back.
Maybe Puck, Shaman, and Snowbird and Wendigo played a pretty big role in the game.
Yeah, and so we've got everybody sans Wendigo. Wendigo's not in there. We have seen some of the other characters. Some of the former Alpha Flight characters have shown up in other books, like Fallen Angels and not Marauders. What's the other one I'm thinking of? That had Psylocke kind of leading the group. Sinister's gang. What was it called?
Oh, it was because I had Wild Child.
Yeah, had Wild Child in it. Yep. Not X-Force. It is. Dang it!
It wasn't Marauders.
It wasn't Marauders, and it wasn't X-Force.
Figure it out later. For a team that's kind of been known for resurrections, have we ever seen Marina back?
No, that's what I was trying to remember. Marina, who was there, one of the original members of Alpha Flight. I have not seen her anywhere. I think she went evil and then she got killed. And
in the Avengers, she married Namor and became and went nuts. That's basically it. She married Namor, became a snake, went nuts.
Yep. So haven't seen her. She hasn't been mentioned here, but we've already got Box. We've got the second coming of Box. We've got North Star and Aurora. We've got the original, most of the original gang, a lot more of the original gang. But anyway, I don't want to spoil
Hellions.
But Hellions, that was the book.
Hellions.
Thank you, kid. Yeah, so you got Wild Child from that. Maybe he'll make a appearance here.
Oh, she is alive.
Yeah. Oh, Marina is?
Yes, in Chaos War.
Oh.
Which is where a lot of them got revived. I'll have to read Chaos. I have like digitally. I have like issues of Chaos War. Yeah, and I liked it. It's amazing just because I'm such a mark for Hercules that it kind of amazes me that I've never read it.
Yeah. I have it. Wait, are you talking about which Chaos War? Because there's been a modern kind of thing happening with Chaos War.
No, I don't want to get into that. I don't
know. Okay. You're talking about the.
I was talking about the event.
Stuff. So.
Yeah. Well, but yeah, I loved it. I'd pick it up.
Yeah.
Pick up Alpha Flight if you've ever enjoyed Alpha Flight. Jump back on and read it here.
Okay. I might do that.
Very cool.
We shall see.
Well,
all right, Caleb, tell us about your Marvel book.
Yeah, sticking with the House of Ideas and also the reason for the season, so to speak. I grabbed a book, and all of my books are going to be Halloween specials this week, right? The first one comes from Marvel. It is the Crypt of Shadows. It has a pretty robust, creative group because it's an anthology, right? So most of what goes in the book, it's bookended by a story by Al Ewing and Paul Davidson with colors by Rain Burrito and Travis Land. I'm doing all the letters and stuff. And much like his Marvel 1000 book, he kind of interlaces this story throughout the anthology, right? These other stories. But you get really great stories. One of them is a Scarlet Witch story by Steve Orlando, who's writing the ongoing Scarlet Witch title right now. Paul Ezateta did the art, and Travis Lanham did the letters on that because he does letters on everything, and actually literally did everything in this book. So you get the Living Mummy story by Kevin Scott and Demaya Pramanak with Narij Minion doing the colors on that. You get my favorite and the standout to the book, which is a Daredevil Man-Thing crossover by Declan Shalvey and Alex Lenz with colors by Matt Milla. And then A Soul Worth Hunting by Sarah Gailey and Eder Messias, who did the pencils, Jonas Trinidad on the ink, and Michael Wiggum on the colors. And that particular story was fun. It was a Hulk story, kind of a Hulk and Werewolf by Night, by the way of Kraven the Hunter type story. Anyway, all in all, this story is like I said, it's bookended by Al Ewing's kind of ongoing tale. And that tale is told by none other than Mr. Stephen Strange's brother, who is trapped in a mirror. His name is Victor Strange. And he's had a long and storied history in Marvel. He's, he died, he came back, he was a vampire, and it's a thing, right? And so all throughout the story, it's just him lamenting and telling issues about why he's pissed about being trapped in a mirror, which I don't necessarily blame him for. I'd be kind of upset if I was that as well. But you get these stories interspersed, right? You get a story about the Scarlet Witch and in her town that she's kind of created a protectorate of. There is a house. It's a murder house. One of the bricks is possessed by the spirit of the bricklayer. And this is somebody who's, in the 80s, by the way, I was not okay with the fact that it referenced 1985. And I'm like, oh, then it goes to today. And I'm like, that's a weird 20-year jump. And then I realized, no, it's a weird 40-year jump. That bothered me in my soul. But anyway, the basically story short is the bricks are possessed in this. And as they have been interspersed as they were destroyed in the 80s, they've taken them to build other houses, and the spirit of the murder house lives on. The second story in the anthology, and I think Steve Orlando's story, not to be a dick, but Orlando's story was kind of the weaker of all the stories. Not because of Orlando, but because of Paul Zetta's art. Just didn't do it for me. It felt unfinished and rushed. but that's just me. I really like what Orlando is doing in the ongoing series, so yeah, I'm not mad at it. The second story is the Living and the Dead by Kevin Scott, and it's a living mummy story, but it's also Deadpool, who I don't particularly care about. Somebody is robbing a museum to get an ancient Egypt artifact, right? And they're going to resurrect the dead and cause all kind of problems. But this unionized league of necromancers has an issue with this. They've hired Deadpool. She happens to break into a museum with a living mummy. It's a thing. It doesn't work out well for her. The standout to me was easily the Declan Shelby story. In this book, Daredevil has been fighting the Hand for how many hours now? We don't know. He said he started fighting him before the sun went down. It started to come back up. He's been overwhelmed. And he's about to break, right? He doesn't know how to keep this up when all of a sudden they kind of find their way into this crypt that the Man-Thing has made his lair. You get absolutely stunning, amazing art by Alex Lenz, who also did the Hellcat series I was a big fan of here recently. It's a good time. And it's just basically like it links up this is the man without fear and the creature that inspires everything with fear to burn, and how would they interact? And they have interacted before. We get one of my favorite things in comics, which is an editorial note, which Daredevil references, and it goes back and says, "Hey, see Daredevil 114 from 1964." I love that. We need more of that, and I love that Declan Shalvey included that. The last story is, again, it's the Hulk story. Hulk is running, and he is being chased by Kraven the Hunter. And then also they happen upon a place where Werewolf by Night exists. And you get this particular version of Hulk is a monster who's afraid of his humanity. You get Werewolf by Night, who is a human who is afraid of his monstrosity. How do they interact? You also get Kraven, who just wants to make sure that he's the best, and they have to overcome that. It was a really fun anthology, just really playing into the monsters part of the Marvel Universe. I always dig that. It was great seeing the Living Mummy again. You don't see him too often, even though that was probably my least favorite story of the book. Just not a huge Deadpool person. So, but check this out as a one shot. There are things that will spill out of this, right? There are things in the Scarlet Witch story that with the bricklayer that you will see come into Steve Orlando's ongoing story. We're going to see something happen in Stephen Strange with Al Ewing's kind of focus on his brother, right? So it's a one shot in an anthology, yes, but it does play into the broader Marvel Comics universe at large. So worth picking up, worth checking out. Fun anthology, man. None of these treated me poorly. I was very happy to have read it. So Crypto Shadows, 1 of 1.
I like that you put that. None of these treated me poorly. That's good. I mean, with anthologies, it can be really hit and miss,
Yeah. With an anthology, that's the thing, right? Like I want 50 plus 1% happiness with an anthology. Don't expect every story to land. Don't expect all of them to be amazing. Give me 50 plus 1. It's a successful anthology. This well and beyond 50 plus 1, right? Every story treated me well. Some were better than others.
Yeah. That's good. That's pretty good. For anthologies, like I said, I read the Headless Horseman anthology for Halloween, and for Dark Horse, it completely, no characters. This was all unique characters. It really did read like a like a 60s, 50s, 60s, or even 70s horror anthology. So it just had that kind of classic feel to it with a little bit of some difference. David Dastmalchian's story to end it was absolutely scathing. Loved it. But yeah, I mean, this sounds great too, because I'm not super familiar with a lot of the monsters from Marvel.
Yeah.
Getting to see them, like the Living Mummy, I have no clue. But Werewolf by Night, yes, and Man-Thing, yes. But yeah, I mean, this is pretty interesting. And the whole, but cool.
Check it out. I think you'll like it.
Yeah.
Alex Lenz, and again, shout out to that Man-Thing story. Alex Lenz is amazing. Like that dude artistically is a must buy. I will pick up everything Alex Lenz does.
And I mean, if he draws a really good Man-Thing, then
He does.
I always appreciate a well-drawn man thing.
Giant-sized
man thing.
He loves us. He would not trade us for the world.
Going to adapt it more to that paramedic face.
Yeah,
instead of that,
you just have to like look at it, sigh, and shake your head slowly.
Right.
Was it badge?
It's my
EMT badge 502.
Reading, Bill.
Okay, Steve has a graphic to put up. I'm on the entire other side. I'm switching big two companies to DC. I'm moving away from horror and political machinations and teams with dead people on it. So I'm going over. Well, there were some formerly dead people here. And Steve, you can put up the graphic here. The first book I want to talk about is Jay Garrick, The Flash #1. If you've been following what's been going on in DC, there's a new Golden Age initiative, and we have a miniseries featuring the Wesley Dodds version of Sandman and a queer-themed miniseries with the Alan Scott Green Lantern, which we'll probably talk about in another show. You got them? Cool. Okay. Very nice to see. Power Girl comes into this. We had the Stargirl, The Lost Children miniseries, and of course the Justice Society of America that's being written by Jeff Johns with a issue coming out every 7 months. So, and I'm almost not lying with that. But this is one of the miniseries that's out there. It's written by Jeremy Adams, who is coming off a fairly lengthy run as the writer of the main Flash series. I'm very sorry. I've got some coughing going on tonight, folks. I'm very sorry about that. And if you followed the Stargirl, The Lost Children miniseries, you would know that there were a series of time-displaced sidekicks that vanished from timelines that through younger team members led by Stargirl have been restored to the timeline. And one of those was Judy Garrick, who was the daughter of Jay and Joan Garrick. I couldn't think of her name for a second. And in the early 1950s, she was Jay's sidekick as the Boom. So you see the two of them there. The art in this is by Diego Orlotegui. I'm not so knocked out by his art, but one of the elements of the art that I was knocked out is the colors. And these are by Luis Guerrera. And, just a very nice palette, almost kind of muted colors, not very forceful ones, which I think really benefits the story. So what we have here, you'll see in the graphic that I have here. If you're listening, I'll describe this to you. It starts in Keystone City in 1963, and Jay and Judy are off to battle a villain who has kidnapped Jay's wife and Judy's mother, Joan. And as they're in the middle of this mission, Judy disappears, and she's not just disappeared from the action, she's disappeared from history. Jay and Joan eventually forget all about her, and you can reference why I forget the villain's name, Child Catcher. No, that's Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. But there's still some elements of the Lost Children storyline where we're still getting some information about what exactly happened with the missing sidekicks. But Judy's back. But she's also in 2023. Now, Jay and Joan, even though they would be over 100 at this point, have had their lives extended through various means. I don't think we've come down specifically on how that's happened, whether they absorbed energy from a demon in 1944, or it was also the after effects of the time that the Justice Society spent in Ragnarok. I don't think they've really come down on how their lives have been extended, but they've been extended for a bit. So they're in 2023. Steve, if you can go to the other graphic. And as Judy's learning about this, she now knows where previously in terms of speedsters was just just Jay and Max Mercury and Johnny Quick and herself. Now there's a whole team a whole bunch of speedsters, and she's coming into a family, but she's also used to being what she is, which is a hero. And as she's waiting, again, it was a very touching moment where Joan doesn't recognize her at first, and then everything floods back, which has happened in DC before when Wally came back. So I hope that's a thread that they follow up on. But Judy can't help but be a hero. So she goes out, even though she's just been reintroduced. And, for Jay and Joan, that's not exactly what they were hoping to happen. They were hoping that she'd at least have dinner first and then go out and do that. There's a really sweet classic comics feel. I don't want to say Golden Age. I don't want to say Silver Age, but this feels like a comic that's been published before that I just didn't read yet. So it's nice to have a comic that, and this was the word that I'm there, nice, but there is an undercurrent, and the undercurrent is part of the mystery. So when Judy and Jay back in 1963 were, trying to rescue Joan, the villain that they were fighting was a villain named Dr. Elemental, which is such a great Flash villain name. It brings, so many of those normal conceits into one character. And it turns out he's back too. And this really was a joy to read this. And, Jeremy Adams treated the Flash franchise pretty well. But this, I think, is by far his best work as a writer in that world. I really like this, and I'm very excited for where this goes. I think, do we have another graphic there, Steve? Or was that just the two? Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
No, I haven't read this yet, but I am really intrigued because obviously, these lost sidekicks that, they've invented for the purposes of continuing these sort of golden age stories in a new way with the younger generation. It's almost like having that fifth generation thing, but in reverse, like going back and finding, these inspirational, very, classic characters or young versions of these classic characters and bringing them back to the present to interact with the current generation, which is pretty neat. And I think it's clever. I think they've really had some creative characters come out of this, and I'm excited to read some more of that.
The only damn thing is I think the Boom is a terrible name for a hero.
Oh no, it's the Boom.
It's the Boom.
On my stack to read. I broke it out just because Bill was going to start on it. Read it while you were talking about it, Bill. I enjoy the story. I think the colors are wonderful. I was actually on board with the art until the art broke one of my pet peeves in comics.
Which is?
Utterly pissed me off. Diego didn't bother to look what actually shot bullets looked like.
Okay.
One of my pet peeves, I post it every time I see it. I will post this later. It pisses me off to no end. Bullets that fire out of a gun don't have shell casings. Mm-hmm. They don't have that, right? So it's one of my things. Justin Jordan and I joke about this all the time when people just don't know what bullets are.
Yeah.
I was on board till that moment. Okay. So weird pet peeve.
You lost me with the bullets.
Yeah. No. Well, it's the thing that put me off of the most recent Daredevil book, right? They had a special, and it was the Kingpin was duck hunting with a scoped deer hunting rifle, and it shot out bullets with the casings on it. I'm like, no, fuck this. I can't with this. I'm done. It's a pet peeve to no end.
Yeah,
they're the really long bullets.
Yeah, the only pet peeve I really get is when Ollie's depicted as a left-handed archer. That's the only time I get. You should know the character well enough. If you're the regular artist, even the cover artist, you should know that. That's the only time I kind of fall out of that.
I've got a few pet peeves. Bullets is the big one though. If you don't do a bullet, if you show me a bullet casing on a bullet flying out of a gun, it's the southern man in me. I grew up around these things and I just can't stand it. It drives me insane.
Steve, do you have a pet peeve?
I mean, I've got
Halloween
several,
comics.
but most of it's just lazy art. To me, is probably my biggest pet peeve, and so a lot of unfortunately, a lot of '90s art to me.
Yeah.
Lazy.
You know who's very good at
Giant boobs. I don't like
shot
giant
bullets?
boobs and tiny waists.
Is very good at shot bullets is Matt Wagner.
No, what is Matt Wagner not good at?
But he's very good at that. There's a Zorro cover that's like,
Yes, I know.
you know what I'm talking about. Yeah.
Yep, absolutely.
All right. Hopefully we can get the rest of this into half an hour. I doubt it. But
I'll be quick. I'll be quick with my stuff.
You do that then, Steve. Talk about your
So a couple shows back, I talked about the Distillery anthology that came out as a way to introduce the world to the new publishing concern. And the first book, the first series that's been released under the Distillery label is Jock's Gone, which is a sci-fi story here, written and drawn by Jock.
What a beautiful logo. My God.
Absolutely.
Oh, that is a beautifully constructed logo. Wow.
Lee Luffridge and Jock are both responsible for the colors, and World Designs, whoever that is, whoever is included in that group, does the lettering. But it is, and this is just one of the covers. There were several covers that came out that I absolutely loved. I have one of the other covers here. This is another one that came out. I think this was more for the store-specific ones, Bird City Comics, but just absolutely gorgeous. And this is my cover with just the eyes. And there's a lot in the book that really deals with the eyes of the character. So it's about a future setting on this world. There's a main girl character who essentially is a scavenger. If you're familiar with all those stories, usually news stories of children in parts of the world that make their living scavenging in garbage dumps for usable materials, for for things that they can sell, things that they can use at the home. That's essentially what this is about. With this girl and other locals that make their living scavenging from the spaceport that's in the city. They live outside the city in shanty towns, and then they go in whenever there's like a major ship that lands to try and get some of the salvage off of it, usually through the 5-fingered or 10-fingered discount way. And so in this particular story, she wants to help her mom. Her mom's pregnant. Her father's nowhere to be found. He's possibly dead. And so she decides to go with a group of adults and some other kids to get onto this giant new space cruiser. This is a cruise ship for very wealthy people. And so she decides to get on there, steal a whole bunch of supplies, food, whatever, and then punch the ejects for the escape pods. Unfortunately, the adults that she throws in with to get onto the ship end up being freedom fighters. They are anti-establishment terrorists, essentially. And so disaster strikes. She has a choice to make and ends up saving her friends, gets them into escape pod and off the ship, and she is trapped in the ship. And the book basically takes place over the course of 8 weeks that she's been trapped on this ship, hiding from the authorities, hiding from the crew, and making friends with the chef in the kitchen so she can eat, and also staying away from all of the terrorists that also made it onto the ship that had been hiding out on the ship too. And she's like, I don't like them. They're not cool because they almost got all my friends killed. But obviously there's a lot more going on than what we're really told up front by Jock. The main crew themselves have another agenda, and it does involve in some way the wealthy passengers, but also in fighting against the terrorists. You're getting some things. Jock's put some little breadcrumbs in here that there's something else going on that could bode very ill for our heroine. But as a stowaway story, I think it's off to a great start. Really excited to see how this goes. And I think these are, of course, limited series, but the format is beautiful. It allows for some absolutely amazing splash pages, and just some great storytelling techniques here, where you can actually see her crawling through parts of the ship, and sort of talking about what she sees day to day and how she escapes notice. And it's really great. So if you love Jock style, or if you just like a kind of an interesting sci-fi, lo-fi sci-fi book, this is definitely something to pick up and check out.
Bill, you're muted.
I'm a failure tonight. All right, so Caleb, let's go over to you. Tell us about a second book that you're reading.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll be super quick with this one. Again, I'm following in the Halloween theme, a Halloween special. This one came out from our friends over at Dynamite. I don't read many Dynamite books these days, but they have a particular property that is near and dear to my heart, as we have all talked about, and that is the Gargoyles. And so the Gargoyles came out with a Halloween special. And this book is cool for a couple of reasons, right? Number one is just the plot, right? Again, it's being written by I can't speak tonight. I apologize. Greg Weisman and Diego Bonesso does the art, with Nicolo Leperini does the colors, and Jeff Eckelberry does the letters, with a main cover, which is the one you're seeing now, by Matteo Lolli. So this story, again, Halloween special, right? It is this new version of the Gargoyles, right? So you're getting to know some characters that you haven't before, which is really cool to me. So the story focuses on this character of Nashville, who is the son of, some beloved characters that we've seen before. He's Brooklyn's son, with some of the new Gargoyles that they met during the travels on Avalon, right? But this is a new character that is created for this comic book. We don't know this character, and he's basically a kid. And the plot of the story, if you read it, you'll think, hey, I've read this before, right? It's 100% the we've seen this happen in X-Men. We've seen this happen in other DC titles. It's Halloween. It's the one time that the monsters, right, can go out in public and interact, and it be a thing. They're able to get out and do things. And especially for a kid like Nashville, right? He's excited. He wants to go make friends. He wants to know the humans around him. He's tired of being locked up and cooped up and everything. So this is his night. And you can even see now that the Gargoyles are they're known to exist in the world. Kids are dressing up here we've got Goliath, and we've got several other characters that are shown in Halloween costume. I think Brooklyn's down there somewhere, and Hudson. So we see that they're going out in the world and doing things. It does the X-Men thing, though, right? There is this group of militant anti-gargoyle forces, in the same way that there are anti-mutant forces in some of the old school Claremont stories, and they attack, and calamity ensues, and the gargoyles have to swoop in and save the day. And they quote unquote out themselves when they do it, and in several ways. Even though the gargoyles are known, they're still trying to get humans to like them, to associate them, not to be scared of them. There's this really great moment in this book where Lexington, who is my favorite character in the story, he goes after they beat back the bad guys, right? There's this big Halloween dance, and everybody's having fun, and Lexington goes down there, and there's this person in a Halloween costume, and they're like, hey, do you want to dance? And Lexington goes, I'm a real gargoyle, right? And the Halloween person is somebody in a feminine kind of costume, and he goes, yeah, no, I know you're a gargoyle. I'm a man, right? And Lexington goes, yeah, no, I do, but I'm married. He's like, it's okay. It's just a dance. Let's dance and have fun. And so I thought that was this really great thing where you get this, Lexington is a quote unquote heteronormative straight character. He's a gargoyle, but he's straight. And so he goes down and is like, hey, I'm this thing. And then there is a queer related character that's like, yeah, no, I get it. I'm a dude in a dress during Halloween. Let's dance anyway and have fun. And he's like, shit, yeah, let's do it, right? I've gone out dancing with straight friends before, right? I've gone out dancing with my hetero dudes, and we have a blast. it's a great time, and I love seeing that reflected in comic books. Right, you can be a straight person who has gay friends and still go out and enjoy yourself and dance and party and have fun. You can be a gay guy like me with straight friends who don't think that dancing is going to lead to something sexual later, right? I mean, we all have the fantasy, but I digress, right? It's a thing, right? But it was great to see. You get to meet these characters. Nashville is delightful. He's a young little bright-eyed wonder of a creature. I can't wait to see what they do with him. And it's just more in the saga of the Gargoyles that I love. And I know the Gargoyles book kind of has mixed reviews. There's a lot of people who don't care for it. There's a lot of people who just thought it's Dynamite Comics, right? Like, this is just kind of mid comics. It tickles all the nostalgia buttons for me, right? It does. It tickles all the nostalgia buttons for me. I'm a kid of the 2000s, early 2000s. And if you're not watching this live, Bill is currently dying laughing because he knows exactly what I'm talking about. So he's losing his composure.
I can't wait for the mid comics imprint.
Oh, yeah. What if Dynamite were the ones that put out
mid
comics sub label? That would
right.
Best use ever of current vernacular.
Mid.
Oh my god, dude, you made me crack up. Okay. All right. So I guess it's my turn. I apologize. I might go a little longer than the two of you just because I really enjoyed this book. Okay. So Steve, if you could pull up the cover, this is a book I've had for a couple of months, haven't read it yet. Finally decided to read it. It's written by Milton Lawson with art by Eric Whalen. This was the subject of a successful Kickstarter that Scout Comics eventually picked up. And as you can see on the cover, it's a familiar name to most people who are over a certain age. Orson Welles, Warrior of the Worlds. And this ties into Halloween because of the War of the Worlds broadcast. I'll get to that in a minute. Steve, if you could please show the first graphic. We start at the end. Los Angeles, October 10th, 1985, which was the day that Orson Welles died.
It's my birthday.
Oh, okay. All right. Maybe you got some of that spirit in there. Well, I'll tell you what happens here. So you see Orson's up in bed, typing away. He's got some kind of new project, and there's an orb that's in his hand. And he says 9 lights. And then the orb falls to the ground at the moment of his death. That's where we start. The book concerns a documentarian named Paula, who developed a relationship with Orson and always wanted to do a more in-depth documentary, but she's been caught in a cycle of nature documentaries for PBS. And, you can also see this is 1985. There's not a lot of opportunities for documentarians. But she's always been fascinated by somebody that she would call a friend, but not a close friend, Orson Welles. And she's given the news that he dies. And she always felt at the time with Orson that there was weird things. He would go off, just disappear for a few hours and then come back. Very often there were sometimes clandestine looking men that would appear to be reporting to Orson that was completely unrelated to the film work. And she dismissed it at a point where it's just his, weird world of a creative genius and these things happen. But when he died, she remembered a conversation of somebody saying that she thought Orson worked for the CIA. And she just started getting fascinated by this. And one thing that Orson Welles said, if there are mysteries, some of them are conspicuous. Some of them are out in the open. There are clues out there, which goes along with his, not just his cinematic storytelling, but also his history as a magician. And she looks at a bit of film of footage where he's doing a voiceover. And it's clear, though they can't legally say it, I don't think. The voiceover is for the Transformers, the movie, and which was actually one of his last roles. And as she's looking at this footage, she knows something that flashes really quick. And she takes the film and she notices it's a UFO. So she starts thinking about this issue of things being in plain sight. She goes over to a studio that she has a relationship with, looks over some other old film of his, and she finds another portion where there's just a brief insert, flash like that, of 3 UFOs. And she was also puzzled by this report that his last words were 9 lights, which he had said to her in the past. She enlists a friend and they decide they're going to investigate this farther. And this might be a good topic for her as a documentarian, secrets of Orson Welles now that he's passed. So she interviews Peter Bogdanovich, the film director who was very close to Orson Welles, who just recently passed away. And she has a conversation with him, and then later one of the cinematographers that really goes nowhere, apart from a couple of sprinkling of clues that, they also, there's my cam back, that they also felt something was very strange at various points with him. So she goes over to his bungalow, and there's men in black, and there's a weird looking fucking creature, and the weird looking creature has this orb that was in Orson's hands the night he died. They're battling it out. They see weird stuff, and they both disperse. And she grabs a box that had been dropped by the creature and the orb, though she saw that when he touched the orb, he evaporated. So she was going to be careful with it. They get back to her place, and it turns out that there's 4 reels of film from Orson's house. They start watching it, and this is film shot clearly in the late 1930s, but it's state-of-the-art special effects. And she's like, he never mentioned he was doing anything with science fiction. This doesn't make any sense. So she decides she's going to be brave, and she's going to touch the orb and say 9 lights. And from that point on, the book goes from black and white to color. And Steve, if you can just point this out. Unfortunately, this does not have dialogue here, but this will give you an idea of what it looks like from this point out. She's transported back to New Jersey in 1938 on October 30th, which was the night of the broadcast. And it's clear that Orson is in charge of this expedition or this mission where they're basically battling aliens. She mentions to him that we actually know each other, but it's 1930, and somehow she's de-aged from her mid-50s to about her mid-20s. Lots of weird stuff, and through this battle, we get these little taste buds. She mentions H.G. Wells, and Orson Welles is like, who the hell is that? Of course, H.G. Wells was the writer of War of the Worlds, which the radio broadcast was based on. So there's these little seeds of are we gonna be dealing with time travel, with other stuff? So as things come out, there's a projection at the end, and it's Orson, or the spirit of Orson, that basically says, yes, he led a government agency. The filmmaking was basically just a cover that basically battled alien invasions. It's been infiltrated, and you have to help. You have to help expose this, and that's where we end the story. Okay, so with the way this is set up, there's no indication that there's going to be a second issue. If you've been familiar, and I'm sorry if I didn't mention this was from Scout Comics. If you've been familiar with some of the books we've talked about from Scoot, Sometimes they will do a one shot of a book and then a trade paperback will come out. They did that with Action Tank. They did that with Clearing the Dragons. I imagine this is much along the same lines. One of the coolest things I found out online is the Orson Welles fan community has completely embraced this. They love this. They felt they got the voice of Orson Welles down. They felt they got the tone of a lot of his work infiltrating this particular story. And there's also a somewhat personal connection for me because if you're familiar with the War of the Worlds broadcast, the Martians first touchdown at Grover's Mill, New Jersey, which I have to say is 2.2 miles away from me. And I can go to it anytime. There's a nice little park there. You can sit on the water. It's really cute. But I'm close to where the aliens landed. So that's a little Halloween connection to this. And I'm kind of kicking myself for sitting on this book for a couple months because I really enjoyed this. And whatever form the continuation of the story takes, I'm there. I really enjoyed this. Again, Orson Welles' Warrior of the Worlds by Milton Lawson and Eric Whalen from Scout Comics.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, sorry for talking more than I usually do. I usually am the quickest with this, but it's a pretty robust story, and I'm there for it.
Especially when you get Orson Welles and H.G. Wells in the same catalog, right? Like you have to take some time with it. So
yeah.
Well, also I love the Citizen Kane reference in that first page. It's just right there, right there on the first. Oh, it's not a snow globe. It's some kind of glowing orb.
As you go through it, there's a very specific reference to the Magnificent Ambersons. I'm not as familiar with Touch of Evil as some of the other films, but according to the Wells people, they were going crazy about a Touch of Evil Easter egg. So really cool.
That's pretty cool.
All right. So I think we have to wrap this show up. And when we wrap an episode of the Comic Book Bears up, we do so with a segment called the Woofs of the Week. But we're not there yet. We got another segment we instituted months ago, and we're going to do it now. And it's our Geek Gets. So we, on every show, except sometimes Steve, because he's a bummer, we show, something geeky that we got during the week. But Steve, I understand you do have something, so why don't you show us your Geek Get?
So, every once in a while, McDonald's or Wendy's or any of the other fast food, junky food places will have some pretty cool little things to pick up. Wendy's was last month with all of their really cool DC figurines. This month, it is the Disney 100 boxes with collectible figurines that McDonald's is putting out on their Happy Meals. And each box has 2 mystery figures from all 100 years of Disney properties, including Marvel and Star Wars and Pixar and the other stuff too. But I haven't opened this yet, so we will see if I got anything cool. Hopefully I did. Oh, and it's tissue paper. It's like an actual present. Pretty cool. Okay, it looks like I got a Mickey Mouse. Oh, I got a Mickey Mouse and I got a Captain Marvel.
Cool. There you go.
So that's pretty neat. So I got the 2 little characters. They're really cool. They're kind of weighty actually for what basically looks like cheap plastic. But yeah, that's actually pretty neat. And it comes in tissue paper. It's almost like a Hallmark Hallmark thing. But yeah, cool. So that was my Geek Get.
I'm kind of liking the blind boxing of Happy Meal and the related toys. It's kind of cool.
Oh, and there's tons of
wow.
Yeah, there's a lot. There's I think 64 altogether.
Jesus Christ, that's a lot of Happy Meals.
That's 32. It's 32 Happy Meals because it comes 2 to a box, but still it's a lot.
You're gonna get dupes.
Yeah.
All right, over to Caleb. Caleb, why don't you show us what one of your Geek Gets was?
All right, my Geek Get is a new to me thing, but not a new to this world, and that is a copy of OTEP, the self-titled album, female-driven metal. I love it. This album is from 2016. Has songs such as Zero, Royals. A copy of their cover of Royals is on this album. God is a Gun is on this album. Lie and Generation Doom are both on this album. Fantastic. Like I said, female driven metal, a little bit new metal, if that's not your taste, but I mean, it's a little bit more screamier than new metal. Although it does still have some of that, like, drop D, drop C, bass lines kind of thing. It's fucking amazing. I love this album. I'm super happy to have it, and I will be listening to it copiously.
Nice. For my Geek Get, if you've been peeking over my shoulder, you've actually seen him through most of the episodes. I have been loving what McFarlane Toys have been doing with I would say, what's the word? Reincarnating. No, that's not the word, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
The Superpowers line that existed from the 80s. So we're on wave 5. I didn't pre-order everything because there's a lot of variants, but I got the new stuff. Let's put it that way. So we have the Thomas Wayne Batman as a figure, and we got the Whirly Bat as a vehicle. But best of all, the first time that McFarlane has done this, we have a 3-pack of figures, and it's the classic versions of Peacemaker, Judo Master, and Vigilante. And I really want to rip this open, but I'm going to get a second one before I do. But I think these are just beautiful sculpts, and just really cool. Nothing I thought I'd ever have in my hand. So very cool stuff from McFarlane Toys. Superpowers. All right. Now we're going to get to the last segment that I threatened earlier. Yes, it's the Wolf of the Week. In the bear community, when you find a fella attractive, you woof at him. And we do something very similar in this show where we woof at something which may be comic related, but it also may be a film or a TV program or a book or a charitable initiative, anything under the sun that we think you, fair listener, or possibly viewer, may be interested in sampling. I'll start as I always do with Steve. Steve, what is your Wolf of the Week?
My Wolf of the Week goes out to a TV show, of course. And this one is out on the Max app, HBO Max formerly, and it is called Scavenger's Reign. It is a sci-fi animated epic. So far, they've released 9 episodes. I'm not sure if they're going to have much more. I haven't watched the last 3, but it is gorgeous. If you love Miyazaki, if you love that kind of organic, unique creatures and landscapes and flora. I mean, this has it all. It's just Robinson Crusoe with various people, crew members of a ill-fated cargo ship that are crash landed on this planet trying to get out, but also survive. And very, very unique, very interesting, and beautifully, beautifully rendered. So check it out if you can. It's on the Max app.
Nice. Yeah, Caleb, were you going to say something?
No, I said nice.
Nice. All right.
Both said at the same time.
All right, Caleb, you seem to have the mic, so why don't you tell us about your Wolf of the Week?
Yeah, my Wolf of the Week also goes out to a television show. And again, I'm very Halloween themed tonight because this is a bit of a horror Halloween episodic thing. And it is The Fall of the House of Usher. Nevermore, The Fall of the House of Usher, I should say. If you like to be creeped out a little bit, if you're a fan of Edgar Allan Poe, or if you just really want to see Mark Hamill deliver a genuinely unsettling tour de force performance, then this is the show for you. It is also, you need to be very okay with the with a billionaire and the family of a billionaire having some hate thrown at them via like murder a little bit, right? So we live in this age where now like we're celebrating the death of billionaires and corrupt families and stuff, and the pharmaceutical industry being just evil pieces of shit, right? So if you want if you want to see them get their comeuppance via Edgar Allan Poe, this is your show, right? And again, Mark Hamill just wins at this. Like, his voice acting comes in. He is the most disturbing version of himself I have ever seen him be, and it is amazing. Also, you get very good, very, very, very good performances by Bruce Greenwood. He's phenomenal in this. And Rahul Kohli is both sexy in every kind of way and just wonderful. So go check this show out. It is streaming on Netflix, and it is well worth your time. Even though Halloween has passed, leaves are still brown. Watch.
Okay, I'm going to break with the two of you. Instead of a TV show, my Wolf of the Week goes out to a band. This past Saturday, I saw Depeche Mode.
Hey, I've heard of them.
Concert. Yeah, I saw them at Madison Square Garden on their current tour. I would never rank Depeche Mode as one of my favorite bands, but I'm a kid of the 80s. I'm a new wave kid, and they play a show, I'm going to know every word of the non-new songs. So just put it that way. So I just want to direct people to some of their records. This is a very good starting point. Depeche Mode, the singles, if you're unfamiliar with the group. They've been, if you want to go back to that, Steve, they've been putting records out on Mute in the US and on Sire. Mute in the UK, Sire in the US for a long, long time. This is a pretty good singles distillation. However, I do feel that their best single came out a little bit after that, which is 2005 with Precious. Luckily, they actually did that in concert. Very cool. If you go over to another album that's called Black Celebration, if I had to rank their albums, this would be my favorite. Steve, it's another graphic. Just if you can go to the Black Celebration graphic for people that are watching here.
I think that is.
There we go. Yep. So in the mid 80s, Depeche Mode started incorporating more industrial sounds into their synth pop. Not so much like the industrial rock of, you can't even call it rock, of Throbbing Gristle, but Einstürzende Neubauten. I'm just like so happy every time I pronounce that correctly. Laibach, a lot of the more European groups, DAF, and kind of started with Get the Balance Right and People Are People, but Black Celebration was where they really refined that. So I think if I had to rank the albums, this would be my favorite. And then Steve, if you can go back to two graphics for the people that are watching, this is their current album, and in a lot of ways it's their most personal album, Memento Mori. The group suffered a loss last year. I believe it was 2022 when Andy Fletcher died. I don't even think he was in, I think he may have been only in his early 60s. And a good portion of this album is a eulogy to him. I was surprised how well a lot of the music worked live because it's not exactly happy, but they put on a great show. And if you're in Canada, the parts of the Midwest into the West Coast and Southwest, you still have an opportunity to see them on this tour. So I would suggest you do that, because now we're getting even the new wave bands. You just don't know how much longer you have with them. And, here I am, at 56 years old, and I danced the whole night. And I haven't done that in a long, long time. And it felt good. It really felt good. So that's my Wolf of the Week, Depeche Mode.
Awesome.
All right. We're wrapping this up now. Again, we are the Comic Book Bears podcast. You can find us on the X and the Threads and now the Blue Sky, right?
Yep.
The Blue Sky as Comic Book Bears. You can find us on the Facebook as Comic Book Bears Podcast. If you want to listen to us, you can do so by downloading us through Apple Podcasts. When we've been used to something for so long, it's tough to break this, and many of the other podcatching platforms. If you want to write to us, please do so by sending an email to comicbookbears@gmail.com. I didn't mention Instagram. I'm sorry about that, Caleb. I want to thank these guys for taking over some of the social media accounts. I really, really appreciate that. And if you want to write to us, please do so by sending an email to comicbookbears@gmail.com. Until next time, I'm Bill Zanowitz.
I'm Steve Morey.
And I'm Caleb Alexander McKenzie.
If you're listening to the audio version, you're going to hear a wolf and an explosion. We'll be back real soon, probably in 2 weeks. Take care, everyone.
Bye.
Woof. Boom.